Welcome to our Ayurveda talk. We're going to take a moment to talk a little bit about how Ayurveda looks at hot yoga. I actually did a talk on it, but my recording didn't go through very well, so we're going to try this again. So hot yoga, I get asked a lot about hot yoga. I was actually at Trader Joe's a week ago, and I was wearing my yoga stuff because I had just gotten done teaching a class. And the guy said, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I told him I was going to teach another class and I had clients. And he asked me what I do. And I said, I do Ayurveda. And he said he was familiar with it. And then he asked me, what does Ayurveda think of hot yoga? And I said, well, it really depends on the person. It depends on what's going on, depends on the elements. And for some people, it's appropriate. For some people, it's not. And I basically told him the Ayurvedic perspective is if you are dealing with somebody who has too much water, too much earth in their constitution, that means kapha, the qualities of the elements that are in that dosha is heavy and stagnation, stockness, moist, and those qualities would benefit from heat and a hot yoga class, which would be more stimulating. It's more stimulating. So when I'm dealing with somebody who has a lot of stagnation in their system, kapha imbalance, or they are kapha constitution, they really need to get going. They need that stimulation. They need that heat. Then a hot yoga class is appropriate. And I said to him, though, most of the time, the people who are attracted to hot yoga are the ones that shouldn't be doing it. And that's an example of what you learn when you start learning about Ayurveda. We have tendencies when you have a certain constitution. You know that. You experience that in your own body. And so you tend to be drawn towards those qualities of your constitution. So if you run hot, you tend to be attracted to those types of events, those types of conversations, those types of jobs, those types of people. They run hot, they have passion, and there's heat behind it. And so I told him most of the people that do hot yoga are not, they shouldn't be doing it. And they run hot, and what it's doing is actually exacerbating the heat inside their system. So it's taking them further out of balance, causing more of a heat imbalance. So he said, yeah, that's really interesting. Well, the gal next to him at the cashier, she was a cashier as well. She got really loud and she said, well, I don't agree. I teach hot yoga and I don't agree. I am not expressing an opinion when I talk about Ayurveda. I'm basically just sharing the fact that Ayurveda is interested in aligning us with nature, which is what we are. We are part of nature. I have to tell people this all the time. You are part of nature. You are made up of the elements. You breathe air. You have fluids, water in your system. You are made up of earth. That is your tissue that comes from the earth. You ate food that makes up the tissues that you have. So you are not separate. You are part of nature. And so it's all about aligning with that and what's going on with your body. So I'm not expressing an opinion when I talk about Ayurveda. I really try to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to be of service to people. And so she said, I don't agree. I teach hot yoga. And I said, well, of course you don't agree. You teach hot yoga. And the truth is that she was showing up as this high pitta person, and she was exuding the out of balance heat in her actual body, in her mind. So the words that were coming out of her, the intensity that was coming out of her, they were all heat symptoms. So her she wanted to like duke it out with me verbally and, get into an argument. And that is all heat. So she's actually doing a practice that is taking her further out of balance. It is not supporting her. It is not helping her. And so it was kind of funny that here I am at Trader Joe's talking to this guy. He asked me about hot yoga. I didn't volunteer the information. I told him the Ayurvedic perspective on it, that it's good for some people, not good for everyone. And it might even be good at certain times of the year, like during the spring when we need a little bit more stimulation to get going, because we're all typically experiencing more of the kapha symptoms inside of our bodies. So that might be an appropriate time to do it. But it was kind of amazing because she demonstrated to us why some people shouldn't be doing hot yoga. If you run hot, if you are a pitta person, you shouldn't be doing hot yoga. And there's a lot of vata individuals who have a lot of ether and air. They're not sleeping at night. They have fear. They have anxiety. They are very scattered. Those individuals also might need to stay away from hot yoga. The heat is actually good for them, but all that movement and intensity is not so good for them. They need more of a stabilizing practice. Heat's fine for vata, but stabilizing is more of what they need. They need to build strength. They need to work on stability. Kapha really is the only constitution that benefits the most from hot yoga. So Ayurveda is always looking at, is it bringing this person into balance? And if you run hot, it's not bringing you into balance. It's not an appropriate practice for you. And I have to be honest and say that it just feels for me when I interact with, and because I've been teaching since the 90s, early 90s, it just feels to me that a lot of these people that do hot yoga, there's like an addiction component to it. They're so intense. Like they are defending hot yoga like their life depends on it. And that right there is something that people should look at. That's off. That's out of balance. Like something's not right with that. Like, why is it that you are doing hot yoga? What is it feeding in you? Is it feeding those intense thoughts? Is it feeding that intensity inside your body that you're used to experiencing? That, by the way, there will be long-term consequences to that. You can't just keep pushing on your body and think that nothing's going to happen. High blood pressure starts happening, or other types of heat symptoms will happen. What pitta people do is they tend to bonk. They tend to burn themselves out. That's what happens. They deplete by driving too hard, too intense, and then they end up having problems. And I also want to say that, I come from a yoga tradition. I have a whole background of lots of different yoga styles that I learned. Back in the 90s, it was really hard to get trained in yoga. There was no 200-hour training at the local studios at that time. There were only a handful of us that taught in the town here. And I had to actually search out a teacher. And it took me a long time to get my original 200-hour training. And then I got involved in a tantric tradition. And it's a huge tradition. And what I wanted to just let people know is the guy that started Bikram, who started hot yoga, he didn't actually come from a tradition. That's something to look at. I'm not saying it's good or bad or right or wrong, but the guy was not an actual individual who was really doing it to serve people, really doing it to enhance people's lives. He was very self-serving. And there's a documentary out on him at Netflix if you guys are interested in learning about him. But he had to flee the country because there were so many lawsuits out on him because he was taking advantage of his students. And I guess it's just what happens. I guess that's okay. In some countries, not here. Anyway, so that is how Ayurveda looks at hot yoga. It's appropriate for some people, not appropriate for everyone. You got to look at if it's right for you. When I teach based on constitution, based on dosha. And I do that because I'm really trying to help enhance a person and an individual. And if they're dealing with a vata imbalance or a pitta imbalance or a kapha imbalance, I'm going to construct a practice for them. We use yoga and Ayurveda as a treatment. It is a way of helping to bring you back into balance. Every pose has energetics. You're dealing with the vayus, right? The vayus are those subtle forces that move throughout the body. And some move up and some move down, and some move to the center and some move out, some circulate around. And depending upon the individual, you're going to really try to, if somebody's not sleeping at night, I'm not going to give them postures that cause the subtle forces to move up and overstimulate their mind. I'm going to ground that individual, give them postures that settle them and move the subtle forces down. So you're working with the energetics of the postures. And that's what I teach. I teach based on the energetics and based on the constitution. I really try to give that individual what they need to bring their life into balance. And that changes, by the way, changes on the season and changes as we age, changes based on different things that go on in your life. So if you have an event that happened that really took you out of balance, then we do a practice that supports you with that. So if you have any questions on Ayurveda and hot yoga, reach out to me. I realize it's very trendy. It's what we do here in the West is we tend to go, oh, this is something that's fun. And then it becomes a trend. And then everywhere you go, it's everywhere. And it's everywhere because it's popular, it's trendy, and it makes money. Right? It's not because it's really bringing people into balance. For some people, it might be, but not for everyone. And really take a look at, why am I attracted to hot yoga? Is it really helping me? How do I feel after this? Am I more intense? Am I at Trader Joe's trying to have a verbal duke out with somebody defending my yoga practice? It's a yoga practice. Shouldn't have to duke somebody out for a yoga practice. Anyway, so that is the Ayurvedic perspective on hot yoga. Hopefully it's helpful for you. And you start looking into what practice is right for you. Reach out to me and I could totally support you with that. Have a great day, you guys.